from when I was a faculty member at UIC, I believe.
I'm going to restart this live.
Our budget was only, the departments and colleges, some of them only get like 4 or 5% of their budget from state appropriations. It's almost all tuition driven, which is why we've had to be dependent on international students. And now that international students are not necessarily wanting to come to the U.S. to study, so I guess it's a combination of deregulation and addressing the job killing regulations, helping to end the brain drain due to the high cost of tuition and the tremendous kind of administrative bloat that is driving our most talented and multi-generational wealth out of the state, and then a balanced budget initiative that kind of goes back to that same concept of right-sizing government and enforcing fiscal discipline. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
That's awesome. You're ready for common sense politics, Stephen.
I feel like I should run for something at some point.
I was going to say that myself.
Yeah, I kind of get into like this. I call it TED Talk mode when I'm chatting on some of these things without having prompts. But yeah, I have a pretty good understanding of most areas of policy and things like that. But it's just like I was born in Illinois. I've lived other places and I have kind of a comparative perspective. But it's just like this isn't how state government runs. That even if we kind of align with progressive values, that like we can't have one side of one aspect of society just using the other as its piggy bank and just demanding more and more and deciding stuff. So like it's going to have to be something, I think we're kind of getting to that point. There's going to be either a taxpayer revolt or the city or the state is going to have to declare financial exigency and discipline is going to have to be imposed through agencies of the federal government because we don't have the capacity or responsible people who are kind of currently in charge of the institutions who are willing to take the political risk to right-size everything.
I fully agree. I think we're getting there. John, I'm going to go to you now. I know you introduced yourself briefly. I had a few questions for you. One thing I wanted to know was how did you said you live in Chicago, right? So how did you decide to run for position in District 16 out of all places?
Yeah, so I live in Chicago. I was born in Chicago. My dad was a cop for 30 years in this city. And I ran as committee man in Jefferson Park here in Chicago. And that's when I had my first taste of Chicago or Cook County GOP politics. And, I'm a veteran. I've been through a lot in my life. And I got to tell you, getting sued by the Cook County GOP and going through that whole experience of getting pushed off the ballot and seeing a committee person get installed, that's what triggered me and made me realize that these little cliques and these little clubs are not inclusive. And so having met people through that organization, I was encouraged to run against Darren LaHood as a good strategic option. Other people told me to run in other districts, but it's my belief that even looking at Darren LaHood's analytics or replies or retweets or comments, he doesn't have a very engaged group of constituents and voters. So to me, he's somebody that I could, theoretically knock off and, become the Republican congressperson of that district. I'm setting up debates with the Democratic candidates because I want to see what their economic theories and policies are and whether they're frugal and fiscally conservative. So to me, Darren LaHood is one of the worst offenders when you look at how much debt he has voted for and created. And using grok and going through congressional acts is incredible. And he's raised over $10 million from healthcare, health insurance companies, big pharma, Verizon, AT&T, Comcast. He's a big pusher of rural broadband, spending another $100 billion there. So to me, we have to stop borrowing and stop spending. It's pretty common sense. It's very practical and pragmatic. And as Stefan just said, without a balanced budget and, generating $5 trillion a year in taxes and spending $7 trillion when you already have $37 trillion, it's not sustainable. In 2050, we'll be $50 trillion in debt and paying $4 trillion a year on the national interest. So the time is now in order to get our fiscal conservatism and prudent fiscal policies into place. We can't keep borrowing and spending. So this is why I'm running primarily.
Okay. And I understand that. And yeah, I mean, I respect your thoughts on it, but Darren LaHood, I think this is his third or fourth term, right? And it seems like he's got a very strong base in his district. So you're saying that your advisors have told you that is still the place that
No, it's not advisors. You just look at his X account, his Instagram account. He's got no real constituents. I'm saying it's a paper tiger. He just based on the analytics. But listen, I understand it's a big network of people.
I'm sorry. I'm not talking about social media analytics. I'm talking about the votes that he got, and historically, right? So
well, that's not
have you looked at that?
Listen, the principle why I'm running is I believe there should be 10 challengers against Darren LaHood in the Republican Party. There should be 10 challengers in the Democrat Party. There's nobody running. This guy is going to run unopposed. So if we really want to make Illinois great again and make America great again, we need thousands of people getting more activated and involved in running in politics. It's not that hard to do. You may lose, I may lose. That's not the point. The principle is we are so far into debt, and Darren LaHood for 10 years has created this debt. In my opinion, as an Illinois resident, a lifelong Illinoisan and Chicagoan, I mean, it's my duty and responsibility to do this. It's not some advisors or advisor. The point is I'm doing this for me, and I'm doing this for the people in the 16th district in the state of Illinois and for America, because as everybody knows, we're going to $50 trillion in debt. And as I said, that'll be a $4 trillion a year interest payment. We're only taking in $5 trillion a year in taxes. Does Darren LaHood care about that? Does he talk about that all the time? The guy does photo ops and social media propaganda in the same way that AOC does. I respect the guy, and I'm sure he's a wonderful man and father and husband. But in terms of debt creation, he is a hypocrite. He's got to go. And a lot of people in Illinois got to go. You live here, I live here. It's run like clown world. Darren is a participant in clown world. See that photo with Ron Paul in my PTR? I helped him with his campaign in California because I believe in fiscal conservatism. The government is broke, and we just keep kicking the can down the road. Darren LaHood is a professional can kicker. I am not. I want to smash that can and recycle it. I'm complete. Thanks for letting me speak.
Okay. Anybody from 16th District here have any questions for John? You can come up and request to speak. The Red Pill, I see you requested to speak. Did you have a question or a comment?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Hello, everybody. I live in the 15th District of Illinois, and I wanted to report in something very interesting that happened. I grew up in the 15th District, lived in Chicago for 20 years, and then came back here. I live in a small town of 550 people along Highway 36, kind of in between Decatur and Champaign. And this little town was a disaster during the pandemic. We had all kinds of crime here, and the village board was run by a bunch of elderly, aging Democrats, and they were very unpopular. The town was very upset, and one by one, they started leaving the board or retiring, and one by one, we replaced them with MAGA Republicans, and the small village now has a brand new board and a brand new village board president. The whole group is of a Republican mindset, and we are going to fix this little town. And just like a small town perspective is helpful, because sometimes you're in such a big city, you see so many people, you lose sight of these things. But in a town of 550 people, the Democrats who were in charge here were fining everyone and treating it like a homeowners association. If your grass is 2 inches too tall, you're getting a fine. And they, if you don't pay your water bill exactly on time, your water bill shut off, you're fined $400. Like things that were absolutely outrageous, and people were leaving this town, and I can't blame them because it was turning into a very bad place, crime out of control, things like that. And we're going to fix this town. We have to build a new water tower eventually. But the woman who was the village clerk, she, also a Democrat, left stacks of unpaid bills for the next people. And they're having to do all kinds of things. But I am joining this village board. I'm very proud and very happy. And we've got to flip Illinois red from the bottom to the top. And I read everybody's posts. I'm just very glad to be here. And I don't get out much because it's a small town, not like I used to when I lived in good old Chicago and I could just go to any restaurant and museum anytime I wanted to. I'm a little more isolated now, but I read everybody's posts on here and try to retweet as much as I can. But it's just good to hear like the different perspective, because this is a different world. I lived in Chicago for 20 years. I know that world, but coming back home to my hometown was a big adjustment. And I got stuck here during the pandemic, but there's going to be a resurgence in this state. And I think MAGA needs to understand that Illinois is not a blue state. Illinois is a red state that needs to be liberated. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say.
Great, thanks a lot for coming up, and thanks for sharing that success story. That does give us all a little bit more hope. And I think the difference is that, being a smaller town, people felt the impact directly, right? And that there was less gaslighting that happens constantly, through media and everything, where, people are feeling one thing, but they're told to believe in something else, right? And here you felt it directly, and you took responsibility and took charge and made the change. So that's really good to hear. And I thank you for all your engagement. I do see that you're always engaged within the community, with everybody. So thanks for everything.
Yeah, you too.
Kyle, how's it going?
Another day on this side of the dirt, my friend. So a quick question for John. Well, one, nice talking to you again. Joining you in your little book club earlier today. Question, what is not the message, because the message you have is correct, but what steps are you taking in terms of contact with like precinct committeemen, people on the ground? What's your plan of attack to actually defeat LaHood? And again, just with ACDC's point, with him having such a big backing, be it good or bad, irrelevant on the point, what's your plan of attack to actually defeat him? And I agree with you, there needs to be more people. The fact you're a Ron Paul fan, man after my own heart. But more or less, I guess I'm just looking for the semantics that you have planned or laid out that you're currently working on or need help with, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, when I ran for committeeman here in Chicago, I hired people from the South Side off of Craigslist to gather signatures for me. I gathered, 700 or 1,200 signatures. It took me 30 days to gather all the signatures. When I got sued and I looked at Stella Richards, the woman who ran against me, they generated her signatures in one day, and the ballots were so perfect, it looks like nobody ever even touched them. So my strategy is to get the amount of signatures to get on the ballot for the March primary. It's going to be a lot of work. I live in the northwest side of Chicago. I can hire people through Craigslist to generate these signatures for me, but I'll tell you, the people that gather signatures for you, it's a challenge to get them to affordably get these signatures created. But I'm going to try to recruit political activists from the left and from the right to help me get the signatures. That's the whole goal. If I can get on the ballot, that's a big win for me. He's got $10 million to advertise to the 16th district. And he's going to spend that money. Yesterday, he re-announced that he's definitely running. So I live in Chicago. I see Krishnamurti ads nonstop. They have an unbelievable amount of money to control the narrative and to run ads. And, if you witnessed Pritzker's run for governor, I used to work at Google as an account manager. Pritzker blanketed the media in a way that is unstoppable. Everything is Pritzker. He's the solution to everything. So the mass media, or the mind control of all of our cell phones, is very difficult to break through. And unless you have the money to advertise on Google, on Meta, on X, it's very challenging. X would be a good place to start for my campaign. But the strategy is to get on the to win the primary, or to get on the ballot. I mean, if I can't get on the ballot, it's nowhere to go. It's going nowhere. So that's my first goal and objective, is to get enough sufficient signatures that can be confirmed. Because during the challenging process, I mean, they literally go signature by signature and challenge every single signature. They will sit there and waste their time challenging every single signature by signature. I've been through the process. It's exhausting and ridiculous. But just to confirm and actually data verify every signature, to confirm that we actually have enough signatures to be on the ballot, in March, and hopefully get voted for. Because the voters in Peoria, in Rockford, if they're just going to be party loyalists and toss, vote for Darren LaHood over and over again for, going on 10 years. Plus, Darren LaHood signed a limitations. Anyways, the point is, that's the goal. I hope that's a sufficient answer for you.
No, it is. Are you using, or do you have anyone with access to software like Numenar or anything of that, to where you know what doors to knock to essentially assure your vote, assure your signature spot at least?
No, I have no back-end data verification or any type of software again, these are going to be volunteers that I'll be paying out of my own pocket to gather signatures at grocery stores in Rockford, in Peoria, in Bloomington Normal.
Okay. Yeah, it might be worth just seeing if any of the local PCs. And I'm not a fan of the tribalism. I don't like the down ballot R or down ballot D. I'd rather R if you're just going to down ballot one of them, but I'd rather an educated voter. That's why I say I'm more of a paleo libertarian. But nonetheless, I would reach out to possibly some PCs that you might be able to have assist you with the door knocking aspect of what doors you want to hit.
Hello, John. So you can get the Cook County data at 69 West Washington Street. Both Chicago City data for voter, and the Cook County voter data at that address.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, again, it's really just getting these people organized, 10 people, 10 towns. Yeah, and then doing a back end. I could try that. I can go down there and see what I can pull after I start generating signatures. But thank you.
Yes. Do you also have a petition lawyer?
Well, I know Abazi from my first time running for a committee person, but I don't have a lawyer working with me right now. No.
But if you need one, I can introduce you one.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
What about as far as media? Someone like Greg Bishop, does a lot of conservative stuff. Next News, Gary Franchi. Also, I'm just thinking here. Shannon Adcock does a lot of things, and she's been on Fox News.
I'm a candidate.
I think she seems pretty plugged into how to get on TV and things like that. You should be getting on all the podcasts, trying to make national news as much as you can with what you're doing. It seems like the national perception of Illinois is that it's just a blue state. They don't understand that it's full of Republicans. And to get on some of these national outlets, I think you'd have to have a good story, give them a backgrounder. But I would think you would be able to. and then start trying to get these relationships going now. See if you can contact Scott Pressler. See if you can contact Charlie Kirk's camp over at Turning Point, and see what they can do for you. See how you can partner with them and get involved with what they're doing and plug in.
So someone reached out to Scott Pressler. He said no, Illinois is a lost cause. He will not come here. For Charlie Kirk, if you can make through, primary, you have a better chance, because there's so many people want to get on his platform. I know, Terry Newsom knows Charlie Kirk. That's the way you can get, but, there's so many people, if you can get through primary, you have a better chance, because he's very busy. He's only have 1 or 2 days a month, a time off.
Even if Scott Pressler won't come to Illinois,
no,
maybe just a phone call to the people he works with to see what their best practices are.
Yeah,
what they've learned, how they've done it, what their techniques are.
Yeah,
maybe it's something that he could learn from his campaign. Because I agree.
Yeah,
I would expect Scott Pressler to campaign. Asking for advice would be good.
I can, ask someone, see if he can get on Zoom call or something. What he does is register people. That's what he does. He has like 70 some, people in his team, spreading out, all over the place.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm going to go to Rich. Rich, thanks for coming up. Did you have a question for John or for Stephen or anyone?
Yeah, I was going to ask John. First question would be, do you believe that we should cut government subsidization into universities and stuff like that, and all the money that we're dumping into it from the federal government and also the state government? The second question would be, what are you going to do if elected for the 16th district?
Yes,
Yes,
I know Rich. I invited him here from Clubhouse. He is a big critic of Islam, which I think is an important topic to discuss at times. But yes, I asked Stefan here, why is the federal government sending $790 million to Northwestern? They have huge endowments, but little do you know, just as your average taxpayer and average worker, the federal government through these grants and subsidies are sending hundreds of billions of dollars a year to university. I went to university. I understand they get state funding or federal funding, but when you look at how much it is versus the endowments of some of these super Ivy League schools, it's absolutely insane that the government is subsidizing these schools when they can generate hundreds of millions of dollars a year in yield on their vast portfolios. And for the District of 16 in Central Illinois, I want to be their Rand Paul, their Thomas Massey, their Ron Paul. If, Illinois is Abraham Lincoln's state, a Republican, if we don't study Abraham Lincoln, study his philosophy, if we don't understand the history of the Republican Party, and all we do is spend $2 trillion more every single year for the rest of our lives, we will destroy the dollar. We will destroy your children's future. We will create perpetual debt. People in this country should be born with a $200,000 plus surplus to put them through college and maybe give them some money for a down payment on a house. Instead, you're born $110,000 in debt right at the bat. Go to usdebtclock.org and study the tables. Find out the true fiscal and financial situation in America. It's dire. We're spending $2 trillion a year Medicare, Medicaid, $1 trillion Social Security, $1 trillion on national defense. The NDAA at $1 trillion a year is a big problem. We have forever wars because we're funding our war machine at $1 trillion a year. So, Stefan is a veteran. We have to cut how much we're borrowing and spending. We can't keep doing this. So this is the message. And the most important thing that I want to emphasize to voters in 16 is that we have to be fiscal conservatives. We have to stop borrowing and spending. The big, beautiful bill that Darren LaHood voted on adds trillions of dollars to the national debt. We have to stop borrowing and spending. We have to be prudent with and set priorities. If you look at what Doge has cut and identified, it's all wokeism. It's all DEI, international climate change education contracts, hundreds of billions of dollars in education grants to study, climate change and gender studies in Guatemala, things like that. It's insane. USAID has been shut down. You know, the Trump administration is making great advances in what's the priority. So if we don't really focus our priorities and cut borrowing and spending, it's like getting a credit card. Darren LaHood has gotten a credit card mailer for 10 years and went and bought $20 trillion worth of stuff that he didn't have the money to pay for. If you want to keep voting for people who have a black card and just keep running up the debt on your behalf, but giving you nothing, mind you, most of that money is going to Blue Cross Health Insurance, to AT&T, Verizon. He's giving it to all of his lobbyists. Go to Open Secrets and view Darren LaHood's lobbyist contributions, and you can see where all the flow of money goes. He's just skimming. He's a skimmer and a can kicker. Okay, he's got $10 million, and I hope that answers your question. Thanks, Rich.
I got a question, just the yes or no question. So you are against the One Beautiful bill?
Do you really
John,
have do you really have to ask yes or no questions? Because I'm for it and I'm against it. I believe that if we strip funding, the engine will get destroyed. You can't take the oil out of this machine. You'll destroy it. So I'm not against spending. I'm against the way we're spending it, where we're spending it, how we're spending it. The five, who, what, where, when, why, and how.
The bill is about spending it specifically and where they're spending it. So, I mean, it's okay. I mean, many people are, so I just want to know if you're against it or for it.
Well, it's big, but it's not beautiful.
Okay. Stephen, go ahead.
Oh, it's Stephen.
Sorry, John addressed you as Stephen, so I thought literally I was getting it wrong. So go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, no worries. No, but John's right. It's like, having taught public policy, one of the things that, like, 2/3 of federal spending is not what we call discretionary. Only 1/3 of what we spend each year actually goes through the congressional appropriation process, and of that, almost half of it is defense spending. So I think that's something like 1/6. If you take out defense, only about 1/6 of the budget is actually health and human services, housing, urban development, park service, all that stuff. 2/3 of it is mandatory entitlements, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, VA benefits, and as you mentioned, increasing spending on the national debt. Debt services, I believe, is either has or will soon overtake defense spending in terms of proportion of our revenue. So it's just like, it isn't sustainable, and it's getting larger. But one of the problems is that, like, because we become addicted to this, as you mentioned, you just can't take it out of the machine. I think something like 1/6 of our GDP is on health spending, and if you try to withdraw funds too quickly, essentially you'll create a great recession that will end up creating a much larger death spiral. And because we like Keynesian solutions, we're going to end up having stimuluses and other things like that. But I think there's the need to enforce fiscal discipline is just something to right-size government. But there's been this kind of creeping, I see it in my own field of public administration, but this kind of, just increasing need to integrate government into all aspects of society that as a proportion of state spending, the federal government, provides tremendous subsidy to states. If you look back to like 1930s and 40s, hardly any of the money came from the federal government to fund state programs and things like private universities. Now it's like, it's a majority of funding. So like, we've got to find a way to push towards privatization, deleveraging the state, and just bringing all these things down. And just kind of I don't know if it's a related or unrelated point, but I figure it hasn't stopped me before. In terms of accountability, it's one thing that most people know here is, that, or one thing I've discovered, particularly in my own episode, is that the media here does not cover stories that are critical of the the political leadership in Chicago and Illinois unless they've already broken nationally. Like in my own case, I contacted WGN and the Tribune months before I contacted others, and they wouldn't even, even return my emails or phone calls. And I think one of the things that people don't know is that Illinois has a very extensive open data and FOIA kind of landscape. And I think that part of the solution, that we don't have a lot of policy analytic capacity in Illinois. We have Illinois Policy Institutes and other different groups, but I tell you from my own case, you can just request. Illinois has one of the most generous Freedom of Information Acts, where you can find. We have open data portals. It's like data.chicago.gov. Cook County has a portal. Almost every county, major city in the state of Illinois has publicly available documents and data sets and other things where you can look through budgets. You can find stuff, and I can tell you just from looking through this stuff, there's a whole movement called civic technology and database journalism that I've engaged with here in Chicago, where just they teach people how to file a FOIA request to get the information they need, and then we have a new institutional model because people aren't relying on the Tribune, people aren't relying on CNN or MSNBC or other news sources to break stories. Just regular citizens like you or I can request budgets, data, information, can look through it, can find the story, and then just like Aaron Sabarium at the Free Beacon and other people, just post it to your Twitter account and then at somebody in the federal administration, and they'll, it'll bring it to their attention, or somebody the big problem with our politics here in Illinois is just there's so much corruption and stuff, and there's a tremendous paper trail and traditional data resources, but we just don't have people who are requesting them and looking at them. And I'd like to, I think in some aspirational world, and this might go back to what I was, the big questions that I had before, is I'd love it if there was a way to help, get conservative political science students or public policy majors who do internships to just FOIA stuff and just put it out in the open domain and just do a lot of the investigative journalism that isn't being done. And I think that's part of the accountability mission. When people are finding, it's oh, well, I did a FOIA request and I discovered that $3 million, a $3 million contract got in, no bid contract went to Brandon Johnson's former pastor or something like that. It's all out there, and it's all, they've acted with so much impunity for so long that they've not really hidden much of it, and there's such a tremendous paper trail. But I think I might even end up posting some sort of session about, how to request these things, but it's all there, but nobody's looking for it. And I think that's at least the first step in addressing this question of budgets and bloated government and misuse and appropriation, because there's a tax that's being paid for institutional corruption, graft, and all that other stuff like that. And that's kind of the low-hanging fruit before we start making cuts to things that might be more politically less popular. But, let's go over the wildly illegal stuff first. And I'll just finish on this. There's a group of employees, the Department of, I believe, Human Services in Minnesota, and they've kind of gone rogue. They have a Twitter account, but they've gone rogue. It's just we're exposing hundreds of $millions in corruption at the Minnesota Department of Health or Human Services or whatever thing like that. Is that any way we can get people inside government? There's a lot of conservatives who work in state government and work in the city of Chicago. They know about ghost payrolling. They know about no-bid contracts. They know about these patronage positions and stuff like that. If we can provide some sort of mechanism, be it a website or reporting or anonymous tip line, that they can give us information. There's people who are connected in the GOP to national political organizations that know how to amplify that to the right stuff. So I think we're evolving into a new era of how politics is played. And I think to some respect, we're kind of lagging in that, but I don't know if we're so much as lagging as it's emerging right now. And I'm seeing the model in my own case, and I see promise in let's start putting some heavy hits on these programs and use that as a way to deleverage, to expose the graft, to expose the corruption, to change the narrative, to get people to go, oh, I can't support that, and then start voting Republican in the next election.
That's a really good point, Stephen. I was talking to a FOIA attorney not too long ago, and I was surprised. I didn't know this myself, so I was surprised to hear that as corrupt as our state is, it is one of the most friendly FOIA states there is. And because that's what I asked him. I'm like, your work's got to be really tough, and he's like, no, actually, it's not. We're just inundated with a lot of FOIA work, but Illinois is one of the most FOIA-friendly states. So that's a great idea. I hope, if you were to do a workshop or something, we definitely need more people using that. The information is there. We just need people to access it and, basically share it.
Sure. Yeah, and like I said, Illinois, by law, that you're supposed to. By law, it says you put in a FOIA request, and there's a website called muckrake.org that helps provide kind of like a one-stop shop. But basically, if you just do a Google search for for Illinois government, any agency, Chicago Parks or anything like that, there's always a FOIA page. But like the city of Chicago has a FOIA page. By law, they're supposed to answer your request within 5 days. In reality, they're a little bit overworked, and they always put in extension requests, so it usually ends up taking you about 2 weeks. But I've known people in the state of like one journalist I've been working with. He's done FOIA request in Michigan, where he's put in a request, and it's taken 2 years. And they've passed through 3 different FOIA officers during the time that they just kept on getting handed off. So, as accountability goes, you take some of that, you shine some sunlight or shine some light on it and watch the roaches scatter. But we do have, luckily, the legal framework to provide a very important accountability mechanism and use some of the principles of data journalism, which have been employed, I'd say, very effectively, particularly for progressive causes. And I've learned some of these techniques. I'd be glad to host a training for people who are interested in doing this. I could probably come down and speak and just kind of show how it's done. But all that information's out there. Everything we need to do accountability, it's a force multiplier in a way that you probably won't understand. You wouldn't expect. But the ability for you as an average citizen to just discover these stories and then post them on social media and then forward them to the GOP vice chair of some committee or something like that, they can amplify it to their circles, and it will go up the chain to the national party organizations. And that's kind of how my thing worked. It just takes a little bit of knowledge to know how the system works and a little bit of preparation to know what you're supposed to be looking for. But after that, you just start seeing the dominoes fall.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to be closing the space down here. We've gone over the hour and a half that we usually allot for this every week. But I'll give the last question to Rich, and then we'll kind of wrap it up after that. Go ahead, Rich.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. So first thing I was going to ask, John, could you bullet point 3 specific things that you would do if elected for the 16th district in the first, say, 100 days? What would be your main goals and objectives? And then secondly, I was going to mention if anybody's giving a heart or a 100 or a thumbs up to John Kitover, if you're interested in helping him, get elected, then definitely feel free to reach out to him and see what you can do to help. Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, Rich. Every HR act that comes across my desk, like Darren LaHood, the can kicker, I will crush that can and I will say no. I am against all future additions to borrowing and spending. I want to see drastic cuts to Medicare, Medicaid. I think $2 trillion for the health outcomes that we get in this country. If we were to take $100 billion and build federal gymnasiums around the country and get people working out and watching their diet, you could easily cut hundreds of billions of dollars from Medicare, Medicaid. So it's not popular because Blue Cross Blue Shield really needs that money. And your local hospital chain really needs that money. I mean, when's the last time you went to a doctor? They do data entry. You'd be better off going to a physical therapist if your health sucks. All they do is do data entry and prescriptions. I would hardly call that being a doctor. That's like being a robot in a healthcare facility. So I think at 35, with all this debt, if we don't change the way we're doing business and functioning as a society and get fiscally frugal as a people, I mean, the Constitution allows soldiers to go in your house, in times of emergency. We have nothing to really worry about in terms of national security, invasion, things like that. We have to cut the NDAA by hundreds of billions of dollars. So, I mean, that's the message, I want to tell people in Illinois 16 is that Darren LaHood is never going to say no. You can use Grok and look at his congressional record and see countless trillion after trillion after trillion HR acts that he votes yes on. He's bought and paid for by big pharma, by big telecom, and he's going to keep funding the money, and he's going to keep increasing the debt at a linear level. So if you want to join me in my campaign and help contribute money so I can find young people in the top 10 towns in the 16th district to go to grocery stores this upcoming weekend to start gathering signatures, because this is a now operation. I have to get 20 signatures a day in order to get on the ballot in March. So if you want to help me, go to johnforcongress.com. It's a basic little website. I wrote a little essay on there because I was contacted by a news agency. And if you want to join the campaign, just follow my profile here. If you want to follow the campaign, just click my profile, and I would love for you to join me on this journey. It's only going to last a couple months. And I thank you all for listening here. And I want to thank Libs of Chicago, who posts incredible content, who exposes the rot in Illinois. And ACDC, thank you for having me on my show. And Kyle, nice chatting with you earlier. I do a book club this morning. I read the Constitution and created YouTube clips. So I think part of this is a communication war. We have no choice but to speak up and to spam them back, because the media and what all these politicians are doing, they're just creating spam. And when AOC is worth $20 million and Nancy Pelosi is worth $420 million with $175,000 a year salary, the fix is in. They're manipulating the outcomes for themselves, and they just keep kicking the can down the road and pummeling us with nonstop taxation, nonstop borrowing, and nonstop spending. And I'm sick of living in clown world. So thanks for listening to me, and I hope you all have a great evening.
All right, great. Thanks, John. Thanks for coming up. Thanks, Stephen, for coming up, and all the rest of the speakers, and the new speakers also, and all the listeners, of course. And with that, we're going to end the space tonight, and we're going to continue next week. We have a great candidate. I'm in talks with James Mendrick to come on to the space. So hopefully he can make it next week or the week after, but we're going to have him on soon here too. So with that, I'm going to wrap up the space. Everybody have a great evening, and we'll talk again next week.
Okay, go to johnforcongress.com. Thanks for joining me here. That was a live X stream. Let's jump into Clown House and see what the great Mojo X is pontificating on now.
Mojo, going to young people. And when you get young people on your side, or just to know who they are, and yeah, even if their parents think differently, there's something about being free of all that stuff that is attractive.
Okay, we're going to cut this and start the new live stream on the Mojo Act show. Hope you guys enjoyed that last
resonate with any
live stream. Hit the like button and subscribe now.
People that are facing going out there in the world.
You know, it's interesting to me.